vibe, yeah, that's a vibe. It's a vibe, it's a vibe, that's a vibe, yeah.
Won't you let a nigga breathe? You always worried about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, that's who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? You always worried about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, that's who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga back up, bitch? Why you always trying to press a nigga? If it ain't one thing, it's the next, it starts to stress a nigga. This overthinking that you doing, it affects a nigga. Patience running thin with you for real, bitch, don't you test a nigga. Ain't never been the type to show no one affection, nigga. She don't trust me, say I'm the reason she don't mess with niggas. Calls me toxic cause I ain't with none of the extras, niggas. Pushing me away, girl, once I'm gone, you ain't gon' catch a nigga. I'm feeling boxed in, I need me some space. There ain't no turning back like TK, I'm doing the race. Forget the bitch, I bag the only thing I ever would chase. Thought you was coming with sight, your number getting erased. On to the next, you should've known how why the look on your face. Get the fuck from off my phone, it's best that you know your place. These years I'll never get them back with you, they go in the waste. Got what I want and now I'm skating and you getting replaced. Won't you let a nigga breathe? You always worried about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, that's who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? You always worried about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, that's who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe?
That's a vibe, that's a vibe, oh that's a vibe, yeah, that's a vibe.
Yeah. Spent. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? I don't know.
We are going to another episode of HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for tuning in as always. This is the show that values time and puts God first. Appreciate you guys for getting in here. So let's get started. So there's obviously it's NFL season, and you could start every single sports show during the entirety of NFL season with just more NFL news. We are a football obsessed country. I am. My wife hates it because I sit in here on Sundays and I have 3 different games going on, and she's like, "When can we hang out?" After the games, which, don't tell them that, sometimes there's overtime. But there's other stories that, even though the NFL is clearly this giant monster of a machine that has taken over, like we've talked about before, they have dominated basketball, they have dominated the MLB, like they just keep doing, like they just keep getting bigger and bigger, and it's just not stopping. And you see that in terms of other ratings. Like you see baseball games during the time NFL games are on, they're getting lower ratings. You see NBA games when there's or NBA stuff or traffic or news during NFL news always overshadows it. There is shockingly, though, one thing that is not seeming to lose its steam, even though it is competing against the NFL. And that is the WNBA, and more specifically, everyone's favorite player to talk about, Caitlyn Clark. Now, there's been a lot the last 24 to 48 hours. Cheryl Swoops, a 3-time MVP. A lot of people would say she's a hater, right? And now I'm not going to put that label on her, but she has made critical comments towards Clark. And because Clark has been such this polarizing player, figure, whatever you want to call her, that it has gotten a lot of news the last couple of days. And so I don't want to focus on just Caitlyn or her against Cheryl or whatever's going on there. I do want to look at, though, what I think the WNBA should be looking forward to, which is, yes, it is great that she has put more eyes on the sport. There are games getting more views. Celebrities are coming to games. She is changing the economy and the view of the WNBA. And that's a good thing. And the WNBA is expanding. Shout out to Portland. They're going to have a team starting 2026. Canada's getting a team next year. Like, they are expanding. They're becoming bigger. They have more eyes on them than ever. And I really want to see, and this is what I hope happens with the WNBA, is now that the eyes are on you, now that Caitlyn, Angel, they're both, and I think they both deserve it as far as bringing more eyes. You have a clear dominant player in A'ja Wilson, who's a face of the league, best player in the sport. I want to see the next step. And normally how that works is it's always not just having one superstar, and I'm talking about like superstar. I'm talking about like the LeBrons, the Kobes, the Michaels, the Shaqs. Yes, there's other great NBA players. There's other all-timers, but there is face of the league type of personalities. In the NBA, as many great players as it's had, you could argue there's only about 10 or 11 true faces of the league throughout its history. And so the WNBA, I want to see what happens as Juju's going to be entering the league here in a few years. Paige is coming here in another year. Like, you have all these eyes. You have all this attention. I want to see what it looks like, not just now as we are hyper-fixating on this season and the Rookie of the Year race and what's Caitlyn doing and what are her numbers. Is she dominant? I want to see the WNBA. I want to see it get bigger, evolve. You have more eyes on you. You have more people watching than ever before. And it's easy. I don't want to say easy, but it is simpler when there's less people watching you. Big creators, it's really easy and noticeable when they do something controversial. Smaller creators, it's less noticeable. There's less eyes on you. There's maybe things you could have said and or done while you're smaller that you cannot get away with once you're a bigger creator, a bigger product, a bigger company. We are looking at Google much differently than you look at a mom and pop shop in your hometown. And the W has had so much success this season. They've had so much growth the past 48 months. Now it's time to take that next step and let's see how you handle this. Because you're not going to be sneaking in these next set of superstars. People are excited for Paige the same way they were for Caitlyn and Angel. People are excited for Juju. People are now excited for these expansion teams. You're getting bigger. You're becoming more visible. I want to see what they do. I am here for it. I support it. I'm excited for it. And this isn't, I know maybe this is a boring take because really my take is I love all the Caitlyn stuff because it is putting more eyes on a product that is getting better, that is getting bigger. I love it. I don't even really, that's even really without commenting on the player, the team, success. There was more eyes. They're going to start getting bigger TV deals, bigger contracts, more money. There's more advertising. Like, I just want to see what they're going to do with this. I'm excited. Speaking of more eyes and more people watching you, and so things get, bigger in that moment. So CJ Stroud, Sunday Night Football, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. When you play a standalone game, that's how guys get fired. Talked about this yesterday. Also, when you do a standalone game, that's normally where we get these big viral internet moments. Guys slumping on the bench, if there's a fight amongst teammates, all that stuff is bigger and it is emphasized more when you are playing these standalone games and the whole world is watching you. So Sunday Night Football, the Texans, Bears, CJ Stroud, Caleb Williams. CJ Stroud, Texans win that game. And after the game, Stroud goes up to Caleb and says, hey, look, man, you can't take all those hits. Hey, man, you're going to be a great player in this league, et cetera, et cetera. Look, CJ Stroud is a phenomenal player. Phenomenal player, phenomenal quarterback, and pretty much in any single interview or anyone that will speak on his behalf, he seems like a phenomenal person. Great guy. He's easy to root for, and it feels genuine. And that's not always easy. A lot of guys are great people, but not everyone feels genuine. And CJ kind of has both. That wasn't a genuine moment. That looked cringy. That looked weird. That looked awkward. CJ Stroud is not Mahomes, Rodgers, even Stafford, where he has years upon years of success and a championship or multiple. CJ Stroud's in his second year. Like, what are we doing here? It's one thing if you're like, you know what, and if you really want to give me some advice because you're really just looking out for me for whatever the reason is, text that to me. Get a hold of my agent. Don't try to little bro me on national television. Again, it's a standalone game. We are all watching. We're watching everything, not just the game. We're watching mannerisms. We're watching behavior. We are all watching you. This is not the mom and pop shop. This is watching Google. This is watching Facebook when Zuckerberg has to speak in front of Congress. We are all eyes, all the attention. It is on you. What are we doing? I actually kind of like the fact, I know Caleb got some shit for it, but I like the fact that Caleb kind of had this look of like, dude, don't talk to me. There's emotion in the game. This is right after the game. Don't try to little bro, like he knows they're on national television. Don't try to little bro me on national television. Yes, CJ Stroud, great player. Anyone who's heard me talk, anyone who's heard almost anyone in the media talk, you just can't find people that don't, or that dislike CJ Stroud. He has knocked everything out of the park. From his play, his off the field, everything. But that was weird. It didn't look genuine. That didn't look like, it looked weird on almost every angle. You know, you go to the Colorado game, people are giving Shedeur Sanders shit, and it's like, oh, well, he shouldn't have acted like that towards the other quarterback, and oh, he's classless, this, that, and third, even though the other quarterback was talking shit on social media, but Shedeur can't respond face-to-face in person? Like, these guys are 24 and younger, and Shedeur and obviously the Colorado State quarterback, they're even younger than Stroud and Caleb, and they know eyes are on them. It was just a weird moment. I like almost everything about CJ Stroud. Did not like that moment. That moment was weird. We did start a little bit later here, so we're going to just take a shorter break than we normally do. Still a lot to talk about coming up after the break. I don't know why. Sometimes we just go a little too far on the pendulum of how we feel about things. People as a whole, for whatever reason, can't just, agree to be kind of like down the middle or have an open mind. Everything's got to feel like politics. Either really far left, really far right. And there's a situation in the NFL that is swinging a little too far back for one certain player in my mind. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. I am willing to argue and take it to the grave, and you just tell me not one of three answers. I get it, you're a fucking idiot, or you're absolutely correct as a response to what I'm about to say.
Okay.
Overhaul has the best quirk that is not one for all for one. And New Order. New Order's just fucking unfair.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say it's not a amazing quirk. I think it's like, I think I agree. I think it's one of the best quirks. Hot cold's really good. I think One for All is a lackluster. I think One for All is probably like the worst quirk. And like the other nuts quirk, and you're not gonna like me for saying this. Hard.
I am willing to argue and take it to the grave. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Excuse me. So, excuse me. Oh my gosh. All right. So sometimes we just start overcorrecting. And I just feel like this is human nature for some reason. A lot of things we feel supercharged on, and we either got to be really hard this way or really for that or really against this or really against that. It almost turns it all into politics, right? Where, oh, I got to be super far to the left or super far to the right. When the reality is, especially for things that don't matter that much, and trust me, I love sports as much as anyone, the reality is they don't actually matter that much compared to real life issues. And so I think that it's always unfair. I used to talk to Tony about this. We started to like make a rule for us where anyone who makes it professionally in sports, it's almost unfair to call them a bust. Like, you just can't call them a bust. They worked their whole life, got to the highest pinnacle. Even if you feel like they did not accomplish as much as they should have, they hit the highest pinnacle of what they were trying to accomplish as an athlete. So you can't call them a bust. And I still agree with that to a degree. I think there is some examples where I'm like, okay, yeah, but he really, he was promised either to do all this or he was this talented, and it still flamed out. And while I'm not going to sit here and demean anyone, call him a bust or call him mean names, I do think I've started to see a story the last 24 to 48 hours with Bryce Young, the former number 1 overall pick, getting benched. And a lot of people are starting to go, well, Sam Darnold wasn't good in Carolina. Look at Minnesota now. Baker Mayfield wasn't good in Carolina. Look at him now in Tampa. And it's almost unanimously we have blamed the Carolina Panthers for what's wrong with Bryce Young. And so much so that not even a full 48 hours after being benched, there was talks of, should the Rams trade for him, pair him with Sean McVay? Should the Dolphins trade for him, pair him with Mike McDaniel? I'm not going to say that Bryce Young is totally at fault. Obviously, we've learned a lot of quarterbacking is situational. Who's your head coach? Who's your offensive coordinator? Who are your weapons? What's your offensive line look like? What's your defense? We know that there are other factors that impact good quarterback play, especially if you're trying to influence winning or the expectation is winning. But I also think it's been so rampant against Carolina because of Darnold and because of Baker. And if you want to take Geno as an example, another guy who was not successful in his first place, ended up getting the right coach, has now been a really good quarterback in Seattle going on 3 years. I also, even with all of those, I can't act like Bryce isn't at fault. I can't act like Bryce didn't underperform. Yes, is some of it the Panthers' fault? 1,000%. But look at the history of number 1 overall picks. You don't go to great situations. When you're a high-end draft pick, the fundamental rule of that is you are going to a bad team. Football, basketball, baseball, if you are a high draft pick, he was number 1 overall, you are going to a bad franchise. So that comes with the territory. I also don't think that even if you were to just magically pair him with the right coach, trade him to LA with McVay or go to Miami with McDaniels, he's not going to have the same thought process that Baker had when he got to Tampa, or Geno had when he got to Seattle, or even Sam Darnold this year in Minnesota. Those guys were years removed from being good. Those guys were years removed from being successful. So when they got to those situations, Baker was on a prove-it year in Tampa. Now, self-confidence, and almost all professional athletes have self-confidence that as a regular person, you just truly can't measure or fathom. But again, Baker was on a prove-it deal. There is a little shot to your pride and your confidence when you're on a prove-it deal. Geno Smith, same thing. You're on a prove-it deal. Haven't been good in years. You've been a backup in multiple situations. Sam Darnold, been a backup in situation. You weren't good in New York, weren't good in Carolina. You went then to be a backup in San Francisco, and now you're getting a chance because of injury to start in Minnesota, but you were supposed to be a backup in Minnesota. So their mindsets were already, hey, I'm not that guy. I haven't been that guy. I need to come in with total open arms and accept reworking. I don't know if Bryce is there yet. Think about it. As an average person, you act differently at your job based on a handful of things. Did you just get a pay raise? Is it your first day? Are you about to quit? You act a little different. Maybe you're a little more involved. You're more energetic because you're trying to earn a raise. You're trying to hit a milestone to get more money at work. Or maybe you're checked out and you're not quite as on the ball. You're not quite as passionate. You're not quite as giving it your all while you're at work. It's still your job. You're still paid. This is still Bryce's job. He's still paid. And again, I'm not blaming the Carolina Panthers. There is clearly issues with that organization. There's clearly issues with ownership, general manager, the talent level. There is obvious reasons why he is not succeeding as quickly as they would like. But all these reasons have always existed for top picks. Joe Burrow, why did we elevate him so quickly? Because the Bengals were a bad franchise for years. And he got there, and within 2 years, they were in the Super Bowl. Well, they got him Jamar Chase. Had you seen how many times Joe Burrow was sacked his first 3 years? Yes, he had Jamar Chase. He didn't have an offensive line. He didn't have a great tight end. Besides Hendrickson, I know, and Jesse Bates was there for a year. They had 2 really good defenders, and then it was a group effort on defense. But Joe Burrow elevated that franchise because, why? He was expected to. He was the number 1 overall pick. And he took that franchise that none of us took seriously. There was people telling him to pull an Eli Manning before the draft. Don't go there. It's going to be bad. And he got them to a Super Bowl. Again, I'm not saying that Bryce is totally at fault because that's clearly a bad organization. But I also don't think the organization is totally at fault for quote-unquote failing Bryce when all they really did was give him the same situation almost every other number 1 overall pick has been in. Caleb's in Chicago, and he struggled early. I understand 2 games is different than the 17 games Bryce has played. And that was Caleb was supposed to have a great receiver room, a really great defense. All these things, best situation ever for number 1 overall pick. And he's still getting off to a slow start. So let's not totally go, when you hit the pendulum, let's not totally go swing so far to one side. Bryce doesn't have to be the biggest bust ever because he's benched by week 3 in season 2. And the Panthers aren't the worst franchise of all time. If you watched yesterday, I made an argument Denver's right now is the worst franchise in the league. But that's what we got to stop just because you can look and you can be kind of neutral. It's okay. You can just use some common sense and go, oh, there's multiple factors here. There's a lot of things going on. This is not just the organization failed, and this is not just the player failed. going from there, I've seen a lot of this too, is people are really tired of player podcasts. It is what it is. These guys have a lot of spare time. The amount of time they're actually training, working on their body, plus off-season stuff, like they got a lot of spare time. If they're going to do podcasts, they can do a podcast. Cool, that's on them. Debo just started a podcast and has been getting ripped the last 24 hours. Not here to talk about how good or bad the podcast is. But I do think there's, again, an overreaction to Debo saying, I've been a part of the best team in the NFL for the past 6 years. And everybody immediately going, how can you say that? The Chiefs are in the middle of a dynasty. How can you say you've been a part of the best team in the NFL when you keep losing to this team? Okay, let's think about this. And I always think this is funny. People we love switching around logic. Logic is applicable when we like it. If we like someone or we like something, we're willing to move the needle on when certain logic is applicable. So are we now saying that you can only be better than someone if you are more accomplished or your resume? Because as an NBA fan, I know a lot of people that'll tell you it doesn't matter what your resume, it doesn't matter what your accolades, it doesn't matter how many titles you won. I have eyes. I can see who's better. So if we can use that logic for NBA players that we like, and you can use that logic for NFL players that I know we like, Brady's not just the GOAT because of 7 rings. Peyton Manning is not worse than other quarterbacks who have more than 2 Super Bowls or a losing playoff record. But we only want logic to apply when we like somebody or we like the thing they're talking about. Yeah, Debo can feel like he's been a part of the best team in the last 6 years because accolade-wise, besides the Chiefs, the Niners have the best resume and accolades the last 6 years. And just because you've beaten them during this stretch, are there people, rest in peace, that feel like there was NBA players on the Suns that were better than the Lakers in the better than Kobe Bryant in the mid-2000s? Because the Suns eliminated them? Do we think Steve Nash was better than Kobe Bryant? When LeBron was losing to the Magic, did we feel like players were better than LeBron James? Again, everybody immediately ran to accolades, resume, the Chiefs are this, the Chiefs are that. And yeah, I'm a Chiefs hater, is what it is. But Debo has every right, in my opinion, to feel like he's better, to feel like the Niners are better, especially if you watch those games. And I know the end result obviously has to mean for something, and it does. Mahomes has 3 really nice rings on his hand. That's what that means. But to feel like they were better in those games when they had a 10-point lead, Debo, this last Super Bowl, he left the field, walked off the field, and they had the lead. Yeah, he has a right to feel like they're better because when he was out there, when he was lining up, athletes know, and athletes especially can feel this, when they're just better than the guy in front of them. Whether that's in the NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL, there is just something about an athlete's presence when they are across the field, across the court, pitcher, hitter. They know who they're better than, and they know who they're not better than. So yeah, I'm not mad at Debo for saying this. And I think the overreaction to, oh, you can't say that, like, not everybody has to, quote unquote, kiss the rings of Kansas City. Especially if you're the other team that's been getting to NFC Championship games. You've been getting to Super Bowls. Again, Brock Purdy got hurt 2 years ago. That Niners team probably feels like they were better than they know. Well, for a fact, we know they felt like they were better than the Eagles, and they smashed them the next season when they played them. And they might have felt like, well, if Purdy doesn't get hurt, we're not only better than the Eagles, we're better than that version of the Chiefs that won a Super Bowl. They feel like, while they messed it up in the fourth quarter, they probably felt like they were better than the Chiefs team when they were up 10 on. So, again, we like to move logic around when we like the person or we like the thing. But if we want to make logic applicable, the same logic to all situations, what's wrong with Debo saying that the Niners have been better than the Chiefs? Ask him for a friend. Oh, man. When we come back, we're going to discuss the things that I feel like, I like lists, and we got another list today, and it's the things that I feel like no one's really talking about, and it's truly a shame. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. So, I don't do a lot of college football talk, but I saw this and I thought this was interesting. Is that people have started to, I don't know if turn on, but a lot of people have started to be extra critical towards Deion Sanders in Colorado. And again, I'm not the college football guy, so I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you, you know, X's and O's and, you know, oh, this team versus that team and pedigree and all this other stuff. I'm just not that deep into the college football world, right? And so I don't come on here and try to act like I am. But I just saw this. This is total reported 2014 or 2024 TV viewers through week 3. Colorado is at 13.6 million. The next closest USC at 9.7. So now, and I know nobody really likes this part of sports because it's not pure, it's not what it's about, And there's all these, any sport has its purists. College football, college basketball, college sports are no different. It's for the kids. It's for improving, playing the right way. They're not quite professionals yet. We like that amateur feel. Okay. The reality is they are professionals. NIL has now allowed them to be paid like professionals. They are putting money, excess millions of dollars in the school's pockets. That's while getting paid. These guys are professionals. These guys deserve to be paid. These guys deserve what is rightfully coming to them. It's also interesting that I saw this take last week. This is before the Colorado State game. And it was, is Deion trying to build a real program, or is he just trying to build a showcase for Shedeur and Travis Hunter? Well, can't I argue it's both? 20 or 13 million views, 4 more than anyone else in the country. And he has 2 guys who are going to be first round, high-end, top 5 picks being showcased to more people than anyone. Last I checked, that's how John Calipari had such a long career. He was getting all the one and dones, recruiting the freshmen who were going to go on to the NBA, were going to be first round picks, and he was getting eyes on them. Shedeur is going to be a top 5 pick, and there's more people watching his team than anyone else in the country. Travis Hunter is going to be a top 5 pick, and more people are watching him than anyone else in the country. So if I was an aspiring football player, why wouldn't I want to go to the school that has more eyes on him and is proving it can showcase its high-end talent? Yes, is he going to have to eventually recruit more high-end talent? Obviously. But Deion is a star. I think he will get better at this. And again, I'm not the college football guy. I'm not sitting there and telling you who recruits better than who and who figures this out first. But the reality is he's going to recruit stars. He's going to get them on TV. He's going to get more eyes on them. And what is better for a college athlete trying to get drafted? Seems like a pretty good formula to me. Oh, man. At the top of the hour, one of the funnier stories I've heard in a while, as well as our top 10. Shh. This is HardFoul Radio. And we are back on schedule. Sorry again today, we did out till late start. But we are back. This is the one, the only HardFoul Radio. We're going to get into our top 10, which are, in my opinion, the things that no one's talking about. And I want to bring some attention to them, and I'll explain why. But first, Ravens-Cowboys this week. And I think this is going to be a really bad moment for Cowboys fans. I think it's going to be America's game of the week. It's going to be not a standalone game, but it's going to be a game everybody's watching. And I think Cowboy fans are going to be really depressed for about 3 hours. Lamar Jackson is 20-1 against the NFC. Teams that do not see Lamar Jackson on a regular basis, you cannot replicate the speed, the throwing angles. The play style is truly one of one. Because once he starts running, this is not Josh Allen running who's fast for a quarterback, but you catch up to him. This is not other mobile guys throughout NFL history. This is not Mahomes scrambling. You know, this guy, it's probably just him and Vic. As far as when they start running, that's the fastest guy on the field. There's a lot of people even going and breaking down game film, and they're looking at the run at the end of the last game against the Raiders. And looking back in the film, it's like, oh, if instead of pitching the ball back, which is what you're supposed to do conventionally, if Lamar makes one juke, he might run all the way to a touchdown. Like, he is that fast, he is that electric, he is that dynamic. And I think he is going to, and the Ravens, who are 0-2, I understand, I think they are going to fuck the Cowboys up. Again, if you do not see Lamar Jackson, if you have never seen Lamar Jackson, it is just different. So much so that who are considered the best teams in the NFC? Like, just top to bottom. The Niners and Lions, right? Those would be the top two teams in the NFC. Look what Lamar did to them last year. We dropped Brock Purdy from the MVP race because Lamar went to San Francisco and beat them up so badly. Detroit, same thing. Beat them up so badly. Seattle. Lamar versus the NFC, if you do not know him, if you have not seen him, you got nothing. And 20-1 is not a fluke. 21 is not, oh, I haven't seen enough. 21 is not, oh, not a big enough sample size. No, 20-1 is domination from one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the sport. And a guy, for teams that are not familiar with him, struggle. Why did everything look hard in week 1? Because he's played the Chiefs a bunch. They know what to expect from him, probably as good as any team outside of the division, because they've played so much. Against the Raiders, AFC teams see him more often. You are going to see, I know there's a lot of doom and gloom right now in Baltimore, and Tony and I talked earlier this week and thinks there's going to be, he believes John Harbaugh is the issue, and I'm not going to really comment on that. I don't think John Harbaugh is a great coach, but I obviously don't think he is a bad coach by any means. But when they get in these games against teams that have not seen him before, he becomes an entirely different quarterback, an entirely different player, because he's just not something you can replicate. You can't put your backup, your third-string quarterback who was fast in college. You can't put a receiver or a tight end. He is unique in terms of the way he can throw, the way he can run, just how electric he is on the field. Think of, we didn't give him a whole lot of credit, but look at Xavier Worthy in week 1. He was electric the second he was on the field. Yes, there was a blown coverage, which led to his 2 big touchdowns. But the reality is you cannot replicate that kind of speed, that kind of playmaking. Why is Tyreek Hill the most dangerous person with the ball in his hands? It's not that he's the best receiver in football, but he can catch a slant, and if guys are 3 yards away from him, everybody on the other team goes, oh no, because you could see him, you could already envision in your mind him breaking away from everybody and scoring a touchdown. So, do I think the Ravens have some issues? Yes. Do I think the Ravens have things to figure out? Yes. Do I think they're overwhelmingly better than Dallas? It's a toss-up. I think they're better, but I don't know if overwhelmingly. But that game is going to look really bad. Again, 20-1 against NFC opponents. You cannot replicate that guy. So, I like lists. I like tiers. I like rankings. I like all that stuff. I think it's just a part of enjoying sports. I do think what I'm about to do is tough for a lot of people to understand. And because, this won't do well on YouTube. These kind of things don't. We have learned in sports, this is just a fact now, the numbers back it up, there are certain things that they're not even clickbait. They are just truly polarizing topics. The Dallas Cowboys, Tom Brady, LeBron James, Barry Bonds. There are these things, these players, these people that they just become, you can just put them up somewhere and it's like, oh, everybody's going to listen. You just talk about them. Everyone's going to watch. But that then leaves, and I understand why big media companies don't want to do it, but it leaves a lot of, well, we don't talk about this team. We don't talk about that team. We don't talk about this player. We don't talk about that player. And that's how guys start to become underrated because the national media pays them no mind. Again, I'm not saying that's wrong. If you're ESPN, you're FS1, you are these huge companies that are investing millions upon millions and millions of dollars, and you need to get an ROI, you talk about the things that work. You talk about the Lakers and LeBron James. You talk about Dak Prescott, Jerry Jones, and the Dallas Cowboys. You talk about the big super brands. Understandable. But that's why, as a really small creator, as someone who doesn't have I have a fair amount of money invested in this, but not millions of dollars invested in this. I want to talk about the things that we just don't. And I'm eventually going to get a better name for this, but just right now, these are the top 10 the things we don't talk about. So let's go number 10. And this one's kind of surprising because it is attached to a big brand, but how are we not discussing Shohei Ohtani literally every single day? The same way the Lakers and LeBron James are discussed, how are the Dodgers and this guy not discussed? This is a pitcher going through Tommy John surgery, and he's about to have 50-50. Do you understand how incredible that is? There's normally rules to proximity to greatness. When we see one all-time great athlete in a sport, we start to think, okay, what's the next all-time great athlete going to look like? And in baseball, we saw Albert Pujols, who was this dynamic, otherworldly hitter. And then we got to Mike Trout, who was stealing bases, hitting 300, hitting 30, 40 home runs, playing center field. And he was the best player for a decade. And Trout, in my opinion, was on path to being the greatest player ever before his injuries. And the guy who supersedes him as the best player in the sport is even better. And we just don't talk about him. And I understand there's going to be true diehard baseball fans, true diehard football fans who'll be like, well, I talk about this guy, I think about it. These are the top 10 things that like big media is not talking about. And how this guy is the best player in the sport. This guy, the best player on a large brand, the Los Angeles Dodgers, doesn't get enough airtime is insane to me. Number 9. Why, and I'm guilty of this, why isn't Matt LaFleur one of the 5 best head coaches in the sport? Multiple 12-win seasons, got into the playoffs several times, has the most wins in NFL history through his first 3 years, and took Jordan Love, made Jordan Love into a quarterback that everybody loves, got him a $200 million contract, and, it's the quarterbacks. He had Aaron Rodgers, then he had Jordan Love. He just won a game with Malik Willis. When are we going to start putting him in that category with the O'Connells, with the Shanahans, with the McVays? This guy's a great head coach, or at least he should be talked about in the sense of a great head coach. I said, I still believe in the 4 that I picked, but this guy has as much of an argument as anyone for number 5. Him and Stefanski, I both feel this way about. But LaFleur, I was so impressed that they won that game with Malik Willis, and they knew they couldn't throw. Now, probably part of the reason they won that game is our number 8 What happened to Jonathan Taylor in the fourth quarter? What happened? Jonathan Taylor, 100 yards, 12 carries, super efficient, dominating the whole game, and then the Colts just take him out. And because we're not really talking about the Colts like that, this isn't a national topic. This isn't leading segments on ESPN or First Take or FS1. Just take out your Pro Bowl running back having a great game. Imagine if Zeke was pulled, and this is not an injury, by the way. Imagine if Zeke was pulled in the fourth quarter against the Green Bay Packers. This is back when Zeke was in his prime. It would be stories. We would be destroying Mike McCarthy, attacking Jerry Jones. It would lead off from at least Monday to Thursday. It would be on every single day. Why was Zeke pulled? They would bring everybody out and ask, what's your opinion on why Zeke was pulled? Why do you think he got pulled? They would ask everyone. Jonathan Taylor got pulled in the fourth quarter. No injury, no real explanation. Number 7, are we sure Brian Dable's still a good head coach? Brian Dable got a lot of talk that first year in New York because he turned around Daniel Jones, so much so that the Giants felt inclined to give him a $160 million contract. And since then, the Giants have been really bad and Daniel Jones has looked worse. So, and Josh Allen, which has helped Brian Dable's case, we saw him regress at the time Daniel Jones was going up. We're like, oh, Brian Dable, he made Josh Allen, he's made Daniel Jones. And now what are we talking about with Brian Dable? Do we still think he's a great head coach? Do we still think he's a good head coach? Did he turn Daniel Jones into a guy who's worthy of $40 million a year? I don't hear anyone talk about him. I don't see anyone saying, oh, he should be on the hot seat. It's just kind of an afterthought. And this is, again, in New York. This is a large media market. Nothing. Number 6, again, we're not talking about the Colts. Anthony Richardson. Now, I was really high on Anthony Richardson coming out last year because I love the potential of what he can do. He could throw it 70-plus yards. We saw the crazy throw in week 1. We've seen the highlights, the explosive runs. I'm also seeing a lot of under 50% completion. I'm also seeing a lot of mistakes that you make in your first couple of games, not into year 2, especially with a head coach in Shane Steichen who pretty much is acknowledged as a really good offensive coordinator, a really good offensive mind. Like, what's going on with Anthony Richardson? What are we doing here? We need to see more, and yet maybe we don't because no one's even asking to do more. No one's asking anything of the Colts. Everyone is just kind of writing it off as, it's just Indianapolis. Number 5, this is a media one. This is Fox Sports, and FS1 specifically, really impressed. So they just unveiled their new lineup, which has been going on for a couple weeks. They got breakfast ball, then the facility, obviously still Colin Cowherd in the herd for 3 hours, as well as First Things First and Speak. And while ESPN is still relying on Stephen A. and Shannon Sharp, who might be 1 and 2 in the business right now as far as sports media personalities, FS1 just has a better lineup. FS1 has more interesting sports content. FS1 is letting the newer guys, well, yes, they still have Colin, who's a Titan and is doing his thing. They still have a Nick Wright. They just gave Mark Schlereth, he's leading the early morning show. They just brought on Danny Parkins. Like, they are improving and showing that, like, this is the new wave of sports media. And I'll be honest, impressive as hell. It's fun to watch. It's actually enjoyable. 5 to 6 hours of sports media versus a couple years ago, we were heading for a really, really hard decline. So that's my number 5. And number 4, this one's probably gonna be a little controversial. And it's not that people aren't talking about the Chiefs, but I feel like I'm the only one talking about the decline of this offense for now well over a year and a half. Last season, they were not a good offense. At the end of the season prior, even though they had led the NFL in scoring, they were not a great offense towards the end. The defense had to come on late in that year. Defense obviously had to save them all of last year. And then this year, where's the great offense? Where is the offense that I was told all offseason we're going to get back to high-flying Mahomes, 40-plus touchdowns, all this stuff? Look at the weapons. Travis Kelce, 1 catch, 5 yards. They got a fumble pick up 6 to scoop and score to beat the Bengals. 2 blown coverages was their best offense week 1 against Baltimore. When are we going to start acknowledging this is the Kansas City Chiefs are no longer a high-flying offense. This is a dominant defensive team who has a quarterback who can be great in moments. Like, when are we going to start talking about that? I know that sounds crazy because Mahomes has already accomplished so much, but just because he threw 50 touchdowns at one point of his career does not mean you are always that guy. Brady had years where he wasn't great offensively, and with Brady, we just all took it as, it was just his first couple years, and then he became this guy year after year. Mahomes started as that guy year after year, and now these last 2+ years, he's been more like young Tom Brady. So, Chiefs offense, where we at? This one's also a little weird. The Celtics just won the NBA championship, right? And I understand it's NFL season, but when Giannis won his first title, all I heard was Giannis, best player on the planet. Giannis is going to start doing this. He's going to start moving up the all-time rankings. When Jokic and the Nuggets won, all I heard was Jokic is the best in the NBA. And people were following his off-season routine, which was literally him in his country racing horses, all this stuff, and how great he was going to be and were the Nuggets going to be a dynasty. No one's talking about the Celtics. No one's talking about Jason Tatum. No one's talking about Jaylen Brown outside of that handful of days where everyone acted like they really, really cared about Olympic basketball starting lineups. Like, this team just won a title, and this is the least discussed a title team or a superstar from a title team has been discussed in years. Number 2, at some point, we are going to have to acknowledge, I know Trevor Lawrence has the pedigree. He was the best player in high school. He was the best player in college. And he has been a subpar NFL quarterback. We blamed Urban Meyer. Then he got a new coaching staff. And there's people now that are true Trevor Lawrence diehard defenders. They are blaming the injury from last year, which I'm not going to say didn't have a factor, but I think there's a big difference between his kind of injury and then a truly obvious season-ending injury or potential career-ending injury like Aaron Rodgers sustained. When are we going to start throwing shade at Trevor Lawrence and start saying, you know what, he's just not a great pro quarterback. He might just be barely good. He got a $200 million contract. He got a Super Bowl winning head coach. They've made free agent acquisitions. And he, in the first half or through 3 quarters, he had 30 passing yards. The rookies who have struggled have thrown for more than him. Like, when are we going to talk about it? And then number 1, and I went on a rant about this last week, Caitlyn Clark is great. I love what she's doing for the WNBA. Angel Reese is great. I love what she's doing for the WNBA. Sabrina, Brianna Stewart, the Liberty just clinched the 1 seed. This is the best player in the sport. And in a season where she broke the all-time scoring record, all-time rebound record, the Rookie of the Year race gets more discussion than her. This is where I understand older WNBA players, Cheryl Swoop, being upset that Caitlyn is getting all this attention, because that's the best player on the planet. Right there. That's the best player in the world. And this is a defending champ. So there is team success, there's individual success. I already ranted about this last week. I don't want to go through it all again. But this is Asia Wilson is the number 1 sports story that we are just not talking about enough. Those are our top 10, our inaugural top 10. This is HardFoul Radio. Back momentarily. Why do we watch sports? I love sports. I could watch football from the morning to nighttime. I could watch Christmas Day basketball morning to nighttime. I can watch a baseball marathon back to back. Do people watch sports just to go on Twitter and troll people? Dare them to have a bad game. I hate ring culture. Yes, we acknowledge Michael Jordan 6 rings. We acknowledge Tom Brady 7 rings. Out of everybody last year, the only one allowed to be happy is the Texas Rangers. Also a Broncos fan. Maybe that's my disconnect. I still watch sports because I love watching sports. Why do we watch sports? I love sports. I could watch football from the morning to nighttime. And we are back. So to close out today's show, there's a clear, and I just want to speak on this briefly because it's a weird topic, I think, but there's going to be a clear divide or a clear hole left in sports media, and that is because Adrian Wojnarowski officially announced he is accepting a general manager job at his alma mater, and he is leaving the news cycle. And there's really not much to say here, but just congratulations on an incredible career. And I think anytime, and Adam Schefter said it really well, when you strive to have one of these kind of jobs, and I'm not trying to make this about me, but when you strive to have one of these kind of jobs, whether it's in media, news, a job that is clearly outside of the normal 9 to 5 range, a lot of times it's 24/7. Like he said, like you're taking showers and your phone's on pressed against the mirror, and if you're doing something like you're taking care of business with one hand and you have your phone in your other, and all these other different things, and it's like you just have to have respect for someone like that who's willing to make that kind of sacrifice for as long as he has. It's not easy, and I'm not trying to make it a comparable thing, but it's just really anyone willing to go that far above and beyond, I think should be celebrated. We're going to miss the quote-unquote Woj bombs, the little fun Twitter interaction between him and Sham, who's reporting news first, stuff like that. It is a clear hole left in the space, and I just want to give a shout-out, not that he needs mine, but shout out to a Hall of Fame news career and to a guy that by all accounts is just a really good person. Like, you don't even hear people say bad things or negative things about him. Just a truly, truly just a good guy. With that being said, appreciate everybody as always for tuning in. I apologize for being late today. Tomorrow, remember this, Thursdays we're on a different time. We will be live from 6 to 7:30. I'm recording A&M with Matt prior to that. So tune in that. Don't forget to go check out A&M. And as always, I appreciate